Good morning folks, welcome back to Tappenoff Farm here in northeast Scotland. Beautiful spring day, great to see the sunshine after a small spell of cold, windy, snowy weather. It's been a wee while since we put out a vlog, so as you can see, standing at a section of fencing and gates that we've put in. At the end of the last vlog we were saying goodbye to the sheep, having to prepare a laneway to bring them down to the bottom of the west field and the roadside so that they could be put in a trailer and taken away, and that went all very smoothly. Sad to see them go, but they've headed off to our friend's place and are very happy there. So a few days after erecting that makeshift laneway for the sheep, we started to put in the permanent laneway. And so we've got one side done, and this is a combination of dead hedge which we started with a group who came on an agroforestry tour. They started packing that for us, and then we've just been continuing. So this is a hedge made out of waste material from all the tree prunings and tree felling that we do in winter time, mostly made out of birch and beech, going up to a gate into what we call the canal forest garden and a small area of apple orchard. So the fence just continues up this laneway. The whole purpose of this laneway is that it connects to the goat shed down there, and we can bring the goats up this laneway, and it means they don't run off to the sides to go into these very delicate areas of fruit trees. We can just shoot them up here and get them up to their grazing in the north field or other sections of the farm. So it's not yet completed. Obviously we need another dead hedge on this side, which is the plan. And once we have that installed, it'll be very easy to herd the goats and the geese to where we want them to go. It's great to have these gates in place. It makes it much easier to keep animals out that we don't want out, and keep this area of forest garden safe from browsing. So we've been planting a huge amount of shrubs over the last few weeks, putting in blackcurrant and bramble and autumn olive and a whole sort of other things that we've grown in our nursery over the last couple of years. We've been planting up a shrub layer in this small apple and cherry orchard that we've got. This was a project that we've been making some big edits to, removing some of the trees that maybe weren't as beneficial to us in this spot as they could be, and replacing them with apples and cherries. And we've also put in rows of blackcurrant on either side of these fruit trees. This is cherries here. You can see these kind of rustic stakes that I've been making just to give the cherries some support, because of the rootstock they're on. They're going to need a little bit of support for the next couple of years, so we've been making supports for those, and yeah, planting basically what's 25 meters maybe, double row of blackcurrants on either side of the larger canopy species trees, which will eventually grow. They just look like plastic tubes at the moment. In here we've got an apple, and here's the row of blackcurrant which runs on either side of this row of fruit trees. Check out the blossom on this cherry plum. It is gorgeous. Unfortunately these guys have been all blossoming while we had some terrible snow and frosty weather, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. These are some of the earliest flowering fruit trees we have. We seem to get a burst of very mild weather in April, followed by the potential for some snow still. So it's a bit tricky for the early flowering fruits. So yeah, it's really starting to come together. These are aspects of the farm design that we've been wanting to do for years, is these laneway fencings and gates into areas, just to make it all run a lot more smoothly, reduce the risk of our browsing animals running in and doing some devastating damage to these high value trees that we've been planting. So Rosa is out over in the west field behind me there with the goats. So we'll just go over and see how she's doing.
So we're just going to go down and see Mandy, who is just as heavily pregnant as I am and due at the same time. She's just been enjoying some of the willow that I've been picking off of the hedge here.
So how's Mandy doing?
She's good. I think she's feeling very pregnant. I think probably because she's so full of goat kid, it means that, you know, she can't eat as much in one go, and it's just a bit more tiring for her to kind of move around. So yeah, we're both on the same kind of level at the moment. So we're at the moment thinking about just preparing for when the kids do arrive. It'll either be end of April or start of May, I think. So we're going to try and make an area in the byre that she really has to herself, because as you may have noticed just now, the other white goats are quite dominant, which means that Mandy isn't really able to get her fair share of food, for example, and the others can be they can headbutt quite heavily. So this will just mean that Mandy can have her space to kid and obviously have those moments with her kids without the other two kind of interfering too much. But I'm still really conscious of making sure that they can all interact still. So we're just going to make like a pallet wall across the byre inside. And that just means that they're not going to be completely segregated. They're still going to be able to all come out together, but just so I can feed separately and Mandy can just get a bit of a break from the other two.
It really is gorgeous today. So I'm just heading over to the polytunnel in the market garden to get a few little special plants that we're going to be putting in the ground today. Ooh, beastie, it's hot in here. So since we last filmed, we've completed the veg beds in here. Well, we've shaped them. We haven't brought in the bokashi as a mulch yet. So we really want to give these beds a really thick mulch of some sort of compost to suppress the weeds, which I can see coming up here and there. Great to see these finished beds. New orientation for us. Usually the beds have been running east to west along the way, 15 meters long. And with our reduction in vegetable growth this year, because we're not running the veg box, we've decided to have smaller beds and just try shaping things up. Talking of shaping things up, I don't know if you just noticed in the background there, it's getting a bit Mediterranean looking around here. Look at these beautiful figs. How well they're growing. So these are 3, little one there at the bench, this beautiful big specimen, and then a smaller one here. These are 3 different varieties of fig, all very hardy varieties, suitable for growing outdoors in the UK. Not sure about up here still. But anyway, these guys are going to be living here in the polytunnel, which I think will be fine for them. This is a tiger fig, unusual old French variety with striped fruits, yellow and green, flesh bright red with a strawberry flavour. Hardy and productive, so that's great. So they're doing well. We've got lots of berry cuttings just starting to grow in here. And then of course Rosa has been incredibly busy seeding all the young vegetables for our own garden. I've got peas and beetroot and all the brassicas and spinach, broad beans ready to go out now pretty much into the garden outside. So yeah, it's starting to get very productive, especially with weather like this. Everything is rocketing away. If I take you guys outside, so behind me here, this used to be one of our vegetable plots, which made up a number of different plots for our vegetable rotations. And again, because we're reducing the need to grow vegetables on such a large scale, we can use some of these plots for different enterprises. If you look a few vlogs back, I did talk about this large area here behind me being made into a 'tree' 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 ' certainly for this year, we've decided not to focus our attention here, but use this smaller plot as a nursery. It's a little bit more manageable. We will use this as a tree nursery probably next year, but we're going to just cover this up with a tarp or maybe give it a green manure or something to just keep it in good condition, and focus our attention to this smaller plot. And that's what we've been doing over these last few weeks. I've been teaching myself grafting. So behind me is one full bed of apple and plum grafts. The blue band is where I have grafted a cultivar apple or plum onto a rootstock, a plum or apple rootstock. So this is really new to me. I've never grafted fruit trees before, but wow, it's fantastic. Really caught the bug. Very interesting, very addictive pastime, and I just hope that they're going to be successful. All varieties come from the apples behind me in our forest garden tree rows. We just put up a tap shorts all about these forest garden tree rows, filmed 3 years ago. They've created all this parent material, all the scion wood or cuttings of these varieties like Discovery and Allison's Orange, which I made cuttings of, and then bought some rootstock, the appropriate rootstock like MM106 or M26 or 25. These different rootstocks will give a different vigor of tree. Quite a lot of trees to hopefully plant out next year or perhaps the following year. And then we've also got a couple of beds of berry cuttings, and this is red currants and gooseberries and black currants and elder and honeyberry and aleagnus. So definitely future plants here for carrying on planting our food forest, or perhaps for sale, who knows. But the reason I was coming into the polytunnel is that we've got 3 special little plants bedded in here that I want to plant out today. As you'll be aware, we've been really focusing on planting a lot of canopy species, so the larger fruit trees like apples and plums and cherries, and also the shrub layer, so planting out all these black currants and aronia and honeyberry and interesting shrubs. So one of the layers that we can often design and plant in a forest garden is the climbing layer. And this is a layer that we've definitely neglected to put our attention to, mostly because we're not too confident in sourcing which climbing plants we can experiment with. It's not necessary, you don't always have to have a climbing layer, but we do have some suitable trees already in the forest garden that just are begging to have something winding their way up as a living support. So we've bought ourselves some hops, and we've already got some hops growing around the farm. I started off a hop plant in our small polytunnel years ago, which has grown very well. It's even crept outside now, and we found it last summer climbing up a willow tree all by itself and fruiting very well with some beautiful little cones. Smaller than they would be inside, but cones nonetheless. Those varieties that we've already got, we've forgotten what they were, what cultivar they were, so we've purposely bought 3 well-known hop varieties for making beer, because we do enjoy making a bit of home brew. We've got Zenith, Phoenix, and Fugel. Tell me how to pronounce it, folks. I do know that this is one of the oldest UK varieties of hops, very well known for making beer. So these guys are just being healed in because they arrived bare root, and we really want to get them planted out today. So I'm going to take you up to the forest garden where we're going to be working, and I'll show you how we're going to grow them. So here is one of our outdoor hops growing up a wild cherry tree. It's been growing here for a good 5 years or so. It's worked its way right up to the top of this spindly tree, using the tree as a support. It used some of the other perennials, in this case it's roseberry willow herb, to start climbing up at the base before it then starts winding its way right up this tree. So it's the ability of the hops to use a host tree to climb up and support itself that we're going to make good use of here in the forest garden. So up here at the pond and the canal system that we made last year, this is an area of mixed fruiting trees and shrubs and herbs, aiming to mimic the natural function and architecture of a forest ecosystem, where we have shrub species and we have canopy, and we have upper canopy with these large, high-pruned native common alder. The common alder is a nitrogen-fixing tree. It's fulfilling a purpose, planted in amongst the fruit trees and shrubs, providing a bit of nitrogen, but also what a fantastic place to grow hops. And commonly hops are grown up some sort of support, whether that's wires or strings or poles. So this is our natural pole to try and grow this vigorous climber up. So far I've just planted one a couple of days ago. This was a division of a hop plant that we had growing in another outdoor area. So hopefully it should take okay, and I've planted it at the base of this common alder, and I've used just some of the alder branches that we'd cut off to help get it up to the main pole to grow up. So hopefully it will shoot from here and climb its way up the branches and then start winding its way up this tree. And that means we can have an area devoted to hop production in amongst all these fruit trees and fruit bushes. Obviously we'll just have to see how they perform. You certainly don't see hops growing as much up in Scotland as you do down in the south of England. But considering we've got that example of the hops growing up the wild cherry tree and fruiting, we should be able to get something. So I've got the hop plants, these bare root plants that you can see are just starting to shoot now. Got the little spears, a bit like asparagus, ready to reach for the sky. And of course when these guys get growing, they really grow very vigorous. So I hope they'll perform like that up here in the northeast of Scotland. We'll just have to see. It's a good experiment. If there's anybody watching out there that grows hops in Scotland, drop us a comment, let me know how you've been getting on. So I've dug a hole just at the base of this high pruned alder, relatively south facing, so we can get lots of lovely sun. I've put some compost in the hole as a big mulch on top. I'm going to just plant this root mass into the hole and cover it up slightly, and then walk away. Really, there's not much else I can do but let it grow. Great, first one in, get these other two in, and then I think we're going to get some time just to do some shrub planting. Rose is over in the market garden digging up some comfrey that we're going to be planting in row with these berries and fruit trees that we've planted in this little orchard. So yeah, it's all coming together, beautiful day for it. that's all 3 hops planted out. Rose is getting on with planting comfrey. Not quite finished yet, so I've got to go and find a couple of twiggy branches to stick in the ground where we planted the hops to act as a kind of training support to then get it up into the tree. And luckily, with all these dead hedges, I can find myself a support. That'll do. So one last thing I wanted to try just to finish up was putting a glass cloche over one of these hops, just to really give it a nice environment to start growing in. We've only got one of these glass cloches, so that's why we've only done one, but we could always make others out of plastic, I suppose. But nice to reuse this broken water dispenser. So yeah, it'll be a nice little experiment just to see how the others grow exposed and see if this is a better way to start hops off perhaps in our harsh climate. Alright guys, I think we're going to sign out and say goodbye today. Hope you've enjoyed today's vlog. We're going to just spend the rest of the day getting this comfrey in. I think we might put a few rows of gooseberry. We've got some sweet cicely that we're going to transplant out again amongst the shrubs and the trees. Fantastic feeling to be thickening up this forest garden system. I hope you're all well out there. Until next time, we'll see you soon.
Bye.
See ya.